Here.
It reminds you of the days we can eat.
Lord night, I was thinking about self-mastery. I'm like, what have I mastered? I'm like, fire console, which is what I normally teach on, and I can just get up here and be like, woo. Who's back there? I don't know. I can open the wallet and look. It is Shane.
Shane, I was thinking
Oh,
Shane was in here.
He's yapping in the kitchen. That's where he
No,
is.
never.
Him?
This is wonderful Carly Duckworth. If you guys haven't met her before, she's fantastic. If you have met her before, you already knew that, so I was just kind of repeating the obvious. But I did want to start out by saying this is the first in series of our trainings on the 6 personal perspectives, which are foundational Keller Williams beliefs. And we were really super excited to have a number of folks agree to do this with you guys. And if you're interested, there is a student manual that you can follow along with and copy. You can get there right there from that link. And if you'd like to have that material for yourself, go ahead and do a clicky click thing there. And that should take you to the student manual. Yeah.
I'll get
You take your notes right there if you like, otherwise we'll go on from there. But without any further ado, fantastic, Carly Duckworth. And she's like, stop buttering me up. I've already agreed to do this.
I'm here doing it.
I'm doing the thing, leave me alone.
And in full disclosure, I was just saying, like, I normally teach fires and things that I can like do in my sleep. This is my first time teaching this class. I've been in this class before, but I've never taught it. So, and I always give the disclaimer that I'm the 3rd best Duckworth instructor. So congratulations, you got me today. No, so this is really interactive. It's going to be a lot of back and forth discussion. So there's no wrong answers. So if you've got an idea or want to share something, please feel free to do so. Also, like, some of it's going to be personal. So if you're not comfortable sharing something, that's fine. If you want to share something, that's fine. We're in a safe space here, and I think we can all agree that we will, be kind to one another if we're sharing something that's maybe a little bit more personal, because it's going to ask about goals and things like that. And some of that may be business, and some of it may be personal. So, as Jason mentioned, there's 6 personal perspectives. It's kind of a basic vocabulary that Keller Williams uses for achievement and leadership. And so this is the first one. So I'm going to just kind of go over that a little bit. If you're just joining us, if you want to grab the student manual, you can get it by doing this QR code right here. Otherwise, it is available online as well. Got it?
It's only 102 pages.
It's only 102.
So I got it right here.
So we'll be done at, no, I'm kidding. Just kidding. That's the whole class, which is broken up over 6 different sections. So, okay. Also, Jason gave me the clicker, which I'm not used to. So we'll see how it goes. I might hand it off. So. Okay, so really the course is this part that we're going to be talking about today, and just overarching the whole course is what differentiates those who achieve at the highest level from those who don't seem to accomplish as much. So I often joke I have the same number of hours in a day as Beyonce, but how does she get everything done that she does, right? Or people will often say to my husband, like, how do you get everything done? And it's like, well, he's mastered certain things. One, marrying somebody super awesome who does a lot of the other things. But people who achieve at a really high level, they've figured out self-mastery. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And what Gary kind of came up with as he was looking at people who do achieve at a really high level is like, what kind of are the overlapping things that they all seem to have in common? And he has this kind of excerpt here that I'm just going to read that he said, when you interview the very top people and you ask them what their biggest challenge is, invariably they will tell you it's mindset. Keeping it strong, focused, and positive amid the many challenges they encounter every day on their way to the top. Gary continues, life is an inside to the outside experience. When you get this at a deep level, you realize that who you are on the inside determines and drives what you are on the outside. Their very best achievers know this and therefore truly work on and protect their mindset. So the other thing to just kind of note as you look at these, any takeaways as you look at these three things before I tell you what I was going to say?
I would say mindset and attitude, I think, are used very interchangeably, so it's powerful to see them both on.
Yeah. You can control it, right? You control your mindset going into something. You control your attitude about something and your approach to life. And I have a maps coach, and this is something that a couple years ago that we worked really hard at because I was letting an inspection ruin my day. I was calling Melissa crying about inspections, but I have to remember that what can I control? What can I control, right? I can't control your mindset. I can't control your attitude or your approach to life, but I can control my own. So kind of, and they overlap, right? So these are kind of the three most common things that people who are achieving at really high level have, in that they're clear on that they control it. So as we look at the 6 personal perspectives, these are the 6 that will be presented on over the coming weeks. So today we're going to do commit to self-mastery. So another way to think about that is saying to yourself, I'm going to nail it, I'm going to master it, I'm committing to that. The next class will be committing to the 80-20 principle, which I'm going to focus on my big recs. Who can tell me what the 80-20 principle is?
I've heard it a million times, but
Yes.
I can't.
I had to write it down so I wouldn't say it backwards. I said it that way.
20% is.
Yep. 20% of your activities yield 80% of your results.
Yeah.
So focusing in on those big items versus getting stuck in the little stuff that we often do, especially in real estate, that distract us from getting to that goal. All right, moving from E to P, I'm purposeful about breaking through my ceiling of achievement. Being learning based, the foundation of your action plan. I'm coachable, that's what I think of, right? I'm willing to be taught, I'm always pursuing learning, I'm learning new things, and as we've learned over the last few years especially, we sometimes have to pivot in this market, right? So if you're not learning based, it's gonna be hard to be successful in all these things. Remove limiting beliefs, unlimit your thinking and your success, and then being accountable. Mine and I own it. An individual's mindset holds the key to what they can accomplish. So if you don't get your mindset right, like Gary said, what you can accomplish is going to be limited. So success, I always like this quote, success is simple, but not easy. So if we chunk it down, we can get to that further point. And attitudes and beliefs from the previous slide is really what sets our mindset. So as we focus on that. Okay, so powerful kind of perspective here and things that we're going to be looking at. So your challenge is, what are 3 things that you would like to accomplish in your life? Okay, that's what we're going to start with today. So if you've got a piece of paper, if you can kind of jot that down. And I'm going to play this quick video and then we're going to come back to these questions. So this video is about a guy who was on the airplane that had an emergency landing on Hudson River. And how in just a matter of seconds, how all of a sudden everything's flashing in front of your eyes. So I'll let him do the talking and then we'll talk about it.
Your dedicated sit-down service reps.
Or we'll watch an ad.
First we'll watch an ad.
That's part.
First, a message from our sponsor.
Yeah.
Ready to be their best. Get sit-down and get ready to work.
So imagine a big explosion as you climb through 3,000. Imagine a plane full of smoke. Imagine an engine going clack, 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 clack. Sounds scary. Well, I had a unique seat that day. I was sitting in 1D. I was the only one who could talk to the flight attendants. So I looked at them right away. They said, no problem. We probably hit some birds. The pilot had already turned the plane around, and we weren't that far to see what happened. 2 minutes later, 3 things happened at the same time. The pilot lines up the plane with the Hudson River. It's usually not the route. He turns off the engines. Now imagine being on a plane with no sound. And then he says 3 words, as unemotional 3 words that I've ever heard. He says, brace for impact. I didn't have to talk to the flight attendant anymore. I could see in her eyes, it was terror. Life was over. I want to share with you 3 things I learned about myself. Jate. I learned that it all changes in an instant. We have this bucket list, we have these things we want to do in life. I thought about all the people I wanted to reach out that I didn't, all the fences I wanted to mend, all the experiences I wanted to have and I never did. As I thought about that, later on I came up with a saying, which is, I collect bad wines. Because if the wine is ready and the person is there, I'm opening. I no longer want to postpone anything in life. And that urgency, that purpose has really changed my life. The second thing I learned that day, and this is as we clear the George Washington Bridge, which was by not a lot. I thought about, wow, I really feel one real regret. I've lived a good life. In my own humanity and mistakes, I've tried to get better at everything I've tried. But in my humanity, I also allow my ego to get in. And I regretted the time I wasted in things that did not matter with people that matter. I thought about my relationship with my wife, with my friends, with people. And after, as I reflected on that, I decided to eliminate negative energy from my life. Not perfect, a lot better. I've not had a fight with my wife in 2 years, feels great. I'm no longer trying to be right. I choose to be happy. The third thing I learned, and this is as your mental clock starts going 15, 14, 13, you can see the water coming. I'm saying, please blow up. Right? I don't want this thing to break in 20 pieces like you see in those documentaries. And as we're coming down, I had a sense of, wow, dying is not scary. It's almost like we've been preparing for it our whole lives. But it was very sad. I didn't want to go. I love my life. That sadness really framed in one thought, which is, I only wish for one thing. I only wish I could see my kids grow up. About a month later, I was in a performance by my daughter, first grader, not much artistic talent. Yeah. And I'm bawling, I'm crying like a little kid. And it made all the sense in the world to me. I realized at that point, by connecting those 2 dots, that the only thing that matters in my life is being a good dad. Above all, the only goal I have in life is to be a good dad. I was given the gift of a miracle of not dying that day. I was given another gift, which was to be able to see into the future, come back, and live differently. I challenge you guys that are flying today. Imagine the same thing happens on your plane, and please don't. But imagine, and how would you change? What would you get done that you're waiting to get done because you think you'll be here forever? How would you change your relationships, the negative energy, and more than anything, are you being the best parent you can? Thank you.
Right down the room. But what are your takeaways? What are your ahas from the things you said? Not have anything that hit them?
Like the little things don't really matter.
Yeah.
Like how he said he hasn't fought with his wife in 2 years. Well, probably when they fought before, it's just over things that really don't matter.
Right.
It made me really emotional, and I wanted to tell my daughter that I loved her, and I looked down at the phone and she's calling at the exact same time.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Wow.
And she's at her grandparents' for spring break, and she just said, I'm leaving now, right? And so then I was gonna text her, I love you, and so, I mean, I did anyway, but I was like, right?
I thought one of the things he said that I thought was so important, especially in lieu of that, not fighting with my wife, is I'd rather be happy than right.
I got that one written down too.
And how your ego plays into that drive to be correct, everybody else to be correct, and not focused on, is anybody be happy if I make this If I point out that little error, will anyone be happier?
And it can apply both to personal and professional life, right? Like, at the end of the day, is the fact that some little thing that's not gonna affect paperwork or the legalities of a transaction, is it that big of a deal to make somebody not feel well, or to tell all the details to a client who doesn't need to know all of the details, they can just know that, right? Like, and to be the nicer person. It's not worth the fight. Did you have something, Jamie?
Well, I always have something.
Oh, okay. I thought you were-
Yeah, no, sure, I'll share. One of the things that I thought was powerful was, just how he talked about how he's gonna reach out more.
Yeah.
And I got a sense of deep gratitude and appreciation for just
So, full disclosure, for many years, I was like, okay, we're gonna get more transactions, more transactions. That was very important, and it is very important. And in the last year, with my coach and her help, we lost a very close family friend who was 55 years old. We found out last April that he had brain cancer, and less than 60 days later, he was gone. He was a senior in high school, a freshman at the U. My kids called him uncle, even though he was just a neighbor. And he was not here, but I had to take a day off of work when we found out he went to hospice, because I was just like, oh my God, he's not gonna see his grandkids. He's not going to see his kid graduate high school. Like, and he has, I love him to death, and he worked his butt off. He worked 24/7. And those kids had a great life. But Jen and the boys did all kinds of things together, but he wasn't always there because he was always working. And it was the smack in the face of like, you know what, Carly, does it really matter if you hit 50 transactions this year? Like, does it? Like, sure, that's great. That's a awesome thing. I can hold up my achievement award. But at the end of the day, is that really what I want my kids to remember? No. So last Tuesday when my mom was out of town, I didn't have daycare, we went to the zoo. And it was okay. I got back to the clients at the end of the day. Did they know that I was gone at the zoo? No. Did Kelly hold down stuff while I was gone? Yes. It was fine. But I have the memories now. And I'm not one to say spend frivolously, but also like make the memories now, right? Spend some of that money. We're going on a trip with my parents, because now all of a sudden I'm just like, okay, we're going on a trip. Mom and Dad, you're coming with. And like, as much as like, sometimes my dad annoys the crap out of me when we travel, like he's coming along because like I want to experience that, right? And so as I was watching that, I was brought back to the feeling I had in June when we found out he had passed, and I thought, you know what, this is perfect, right? Like, nobody probably ever had that conversation with him. And like I said, I loved him dearly, and it's very sad that he's not here. And what can I learn from that to take forward with my kids? So my hope is that by being in this class and through what we teach today is that you really like look at that. And I think Keller Williams does a really good job of bringing these questions to the forefront for all of us, as well as pushing us to think about our big why, which I'll get into in a little bit too. But so if we take that kind of story that he shared in your ahas out of that, if you think about your life and kind of your perspective, he says, I was given the gift of seeing into the future and coming back and living differently. Imagine if you got that same gift. How would you change? What would you do that you are waiting to get done because you think we'll be here forever, right? If you have a second, I'd like you to write down 3 things that you'd like to accomplish in your life. And don't get too stuck on it. It doesn't have to be it could be something very small. It could be, hey, when I don't have daycare, I'm taking the kids. Okay. So it can be something small. It doesn't have to be huge, but it also could be like, hey, I'm going to master recruiting so that I bring more agents onto my team so that I have more flexibility, so I can still hit that number that I want to hit, but I'm not doing every transaction. I'm hiring an admin so that, I make it like a little bit smoother. I'm mastering my calendar and time blocking. And thankfully for us, it doesn't need to involve a plane crashing into the river. We got to live that through his story. Take a couple minutes to break that down. Keep writing if you are, I'm just gonna move forward, but don't stop. I love it. So I want you to then pick one of those, right? So pick one of those that you're gonna kind of focus in on, and we're gonna come back to that throughout the class. So find one that you wanna keep using for the next few weeks. So all high achievers do what's called a reality check, okay? So they, first, they're really good at recognizing where they are and then proactively take action to get where they want to be. So reality check is, we're going to look at what is the goal? What is your goal? So circle the one that you have that you're going to focus on. And then what I want you to do is think about how are you doing with that goal? No, again, no judgment. Where are you at from your own perspective? Once you've done that, how do you feel about where you rated yourself as far as how you're doing with that goal? And then once you've done that, what will your future look like if you don't achieve your goal? I'm just going to give an example, a couple of different examples here to play it out for you. When I very first started coaching, she said, like, how's it going? I said, great, we have 18 signed buyer reps. She's like, awesome, are you going to hit your goal? I'm like, yes, absolutely, we're going to hit our goal. We missed our goal by 6 that year. Do you know why we did that? Because I didn't do a reality check. I knew I had 18 signed buyer reps, but I didn't know their motivation. I didn't know when they were going to close. I just knew they were going to close. So I had this false sense of, yep, we're going to hit our goal because I had the signed buyer rep contracts. They weren't under contract on a home. So I was like, this is my goal, how I'm doing, I feel good about it, but then I never did number 4. What will your future like if you don't achieve that? Like, oh, shoot. And then we got to November and I'm like, oh gosh, somebody fell out and some of them weren't going under contract when I thought. And sure, they closed the next year, but all of a sudden I'm short because I never did the reality check. I just assumed that I was good. Last year, my coach had us do this activity where we took our commission from the year before and we divided it out so we could figure out what our average commission was. And we set our goals for this year of how many transactions we wanted to do. She said, every time you don't hit your goal, subtract that average commission from what your year-end commission. All of a sudden, making that extra 1 call or that extra door knock or the extra CMA was a little bit more like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do kind of like what we heard at family reunion. I'm gonna do that 1 more because if I don't, then I'm subtracting $5,000 from my year-end income. Whereas when I'm sitting at my desk and thinking like, oh, I'll make another call tomorrow, like, well, yes, I might, but then I'm still 1 behind for today, right? So that's a easy activity you could implement right away of like, hey, what's the average commission if you didn't sell last year? What's the average commission of an agent in this office? What's my end year goal? And every time I'm not hitting that, and it's not to be negative, right? This is just to help us think, well, how would a high achiever do it? They would follow that kind of process. Anyone want to share what they circled or how they feel they're doing? Yeah.
I can share.
Awesome.
For my goal, it is mastering my time.
Okay.
Because family is like number 1, right?
Yep.
But I've noticed, like you said, with your goals, like we have lofty goals. And I am doing the grind, like in it thick. What the heck? Who's going where? Who's dropping? Who's
Yep.
okay? And then I'm like, hey, that's right. Okay, we said we'd go get pizza tonight. Okay, I can't go show that house because I need to go get pizza with my guy. You know what I mean? Like I need to master my calendar so much so that I block out and say, it's okay to say no. And it's okay to say, hey, you know what? Tonight doesn't work for me, but let's do tomorrow night. But at the same time, you're probably gonna lose the house because right now it's just hot and there's probably 5 offers and if you don't get in there, you know what I mean? Like I have to let it go.
So a couple things.
Yeah.
When I called to get my hair done, or I called for some other service, they gave me the time with her, right? I was really guilty of saying like, I can do any time at work hours that everyone else doesn't work, like you let me know. So I think 1, don't be afraid to tell them, hey, this is when I'm available, or calling the listing agent saying, when are you gonna present offers? So can I come tomorrow? Is that gonna be a big deal? And then letting the client know, like, hey, I talked to the agent, they're not gonna review anything until Saturday, so we're good to go tomorrow. The other thing is, as I was preparing for this class, I watched a training that James Shaw did with somebody else, and he was interviewing another gal, and she said, sometimes it's not what do I need to do here, but who. Who do I need in my life to help do the showing or manage the calendar or whatever it may be? Because she said a lot of times we go to the I can't. You can, but who in your life are you missing to help make that happen? So, thank you for sharing good points. Anyone else want to share? The reality check, I think, is a really important part as you're thinking about self-mastery and moving forward. Is, at least for me, I sometimes have a false sense of where I am versus where I want to go. And if you chunk it down, it's simple, not easy. But if you wait till the end, like I did that 1 year, and it's not like, oh yeah, I have it, I haven't gone through all the steps. Okay. Any ahas so far? Nothing? Excellent. Okay. So we're gonna actually step into what is now step one. Does anyone have any questions about overarching sort of what is the 6 personal perspectives? What are we trying to accomplish by the end of the course? So you've got your one goal that we're gonna apply kind of to all the rest of the courses here. So we'll step into specifically self-mastery now. Okay, so self-mastery is the possession of great knowledge, skills, and habits that make you the master of you. So when you commit to self-mastery, you are saying, hey, I know my goals, you know your strengths and weaknesses, and you know how to work with both to reach what your goals are. So mastery is the possession of great knowledge, skills, and habits that make one the master of a subject. It's a journey, not an event. That is really hard for someone like me. I'm a type A firstborn, follow the rules. You tell me where point A and B is, I want to get there. I'm not a marathon runner. I don't want to do the journey. I just want to get to and get my ribbon at the end. It's like, done it, thanks, great. So it's important to remember as you're on this, not only is it a journey, but your goals might change, right? Like as life evolves, your goals might shift a little bit, and it's still mastering your calendar, but it might look different next year than what it looks like today, right? So this book, The Outliers, one of the big takeaways here in this book is that he says that anyone who's mastered something has spent at least 10,000 hours doing that. Which, when I read that, I was like, wow, 10,000 hours. I would say I've mastered a buyer consult. Then I thought about it, I'm like, I don't know that I put 10,000 hours. So I bet there's other things I can do with the buyer consult to really become a master. So what are some things in your life where you're like, whoa, I think I'm a master of it, but maybe I should go back and be like, yeah.
I know that I am a master of the world of Warcraft.
Yeah. How many hours?
I know
Yes.
that I am a master.
More than
of the
10,000.
world of Warcraft.
Yeah.
I just did the math though. Are you prepared to face this?
I could show you the math, because I know what the math is.
10,000 divided by 40 is 250 weeks. Divided by 52 weeks is 4.8 years.
I know what the math is. I can find the counter on there to prove it. I've been going for 20 years.
Oh, okay,
Success
okay.
rate's probably pretty good at this point.
I am, I always outperform other players.
But the key, I think, is, practice is the critical part of success, right? Like, if you're not practicing your craft or your skill or whatever you're trying to get better at, you can't be upset if you're not getting better at it. Like, one of my things this year is getting better at recruiting. Well, if I'm not practicing that, then how could I be upset if I don't have anyone joining my team? Well, how many calls did I make? My coach will ask me, like, oh, she's like, okay, so what exactly are you expecting out of that by the end of the year? Yeah, true. It reminded me of, so although I'm not athletic at all, I follow a lot of athletes and I find athletics super inspirational. And it reminded me of a story. I watch a lot of sports documentaries, surprisingly probably, about Kobe Bryant. You know him, he was a very famous basketball player for the Olympics. And he was playing on the Team USA. I don't know if it was for the Olympics or where they were going, but it was essentially this team of all the best players from the United States. And they were, I think it was in Vegas, they were in Vegas, and they all went out the night before, and the person telling the story said, like, we're out, we're having fun, he's like, I look around, like, Kobe's not there. It's like, no, it is what it is, and he said that next morning we had no practice schedule, so we were living it up. And he said, we got on the elevator to go have breakfast at 10 o'clock, and Kobe was getting off the elevator, he had gotten up at 6 and had been practicing for the last 4 hours. It's like, you better believe we were all on that elevator the next day, because if he's putting in the time, why aren't we, even if we're not required? Well, it made me think like, well, no wonder he's the best of the best. He's put way more than 10,000 hours. Yeah.
A similar Kobe Bryant story was that another player played against him, and he said, I called and found out what time Kobe shows up at the gym, and I wanted to prove to Kobe that I was better than him. So Kobe shows up at the gym at 5 in the morning, so I got there at 5. And I looked up, and there's Kobe, and he's been there an hour. Because he heard that I was gonna be there at 5. And he showed up an hour to beat me.
Wow.
But committed to the mastery, right? Same with, I mean, you can, there's all kinds of athletes. I think of Tom Brady, right? He's played way longer than anyone else, and say what you will about him if you like him or not. But he has also, he is committed to keeping his body in shape. But like, I watched a whole thing about like stretching and all. He hired someone who travels with him to do all of his PT and prep work and everything that he does to be in the best physical shape of his life, to be able to do the thing that he loved to do. He was the master of it. So sports are for me an easy example of something where someone has put in the time on task over time to become a master of it. But that can be applied to anything in your life, right? Like you can do that for a buyer card, you can do that on listings, you can do that being a mom. So it's, the practice is it's more critical than ambition, intelligence, and natural talent. Practice will beat it, all of those combined every time. So we're gonna kind of put the pieces together of self-mastery. So I'm just gonna run through an example and have you guys kind of think of your goal as well. So if our goal is to master prospecting, what are the pieces that we are going to be putting together to become the master of that? So let's identify some of the strengths and weaknesses somebody might have about prospecting. What is something somebody might, if they're really good at prospecting, what would you say is like, they might be one of their strengths? Think they'd be good or bad with people? Probably good, right? What if they are really good with people at like a social event, but in a business event, they shrivel up? That could be a weakness, right? So if I know, okay, for prospecting, I'm awesome with people, but when I have to talk about real estate, I don't quite know what to say, and so I don't say anything, and I'm friends with all these people, but I never ask them for business. So one of my weaknesses there would be, hey, I need to figure out how to talk about business. So once we're kind of aware of what the pieces are, then we can make a plan of, okay, how am I gonna get better? How am I gonna use my strengths and also get better at my weaknesses? So one, what are some ideas of things you could do to master prospecting, get better at prospecting? Consistency. What else? Role play. Yeah. Schedule. Yeah.
Work with somebody or find somebody who's good at it.
Yes. Practice scripts. Call your sphere of influence. Maybe take a class. Right? Take Bold or take Ignite. Put those pieces together. And what we're working on doing is building that muscle. Right? We're not looking to be the bodybuilder overnight, but we're working on hopefully a little bit every day, time on task, to get us to that mastery at the end. By knowing your goal, so master prospecting, knowing your strengths and weaknesses, and then making a plan to work with both, you're on your way to self-mastery. Now, you gotta get on top of staying on top of that. So to your point, put it on your calendar. Have an accountability partner who asks where you are at 6 a.m. when you're supposed to be on a call or whatever it was. Right? We were talking about that when you walked in today. So. And have people who lovingly hold you accountable. So I was thinking about what are some other examples of obstacles to prevent someone from mastering. And if you think about the last couple of years, I think we've really, as an industry, been put through some things where we've had to pivot, not just in the shifting market, but I was thinking back to COVID. when that first hit, I remember it was like, we can't have open houses, you can't do showings, we can't have more than one party in the house at a time, like all of a sudden I was like, how am I gonna sell? I remember sitting at home and we had a, Zoom, God, brought me back to 2010. A Zoom call with the ALC, and it was like, okay, what are we gonna do to support everyone? And like, how are we gonna sell homes? Like, the market was gonna tank. It was like, no, it was fear. Then as we thought about it, it was like, well, we can still have showings, we can just only have one group in at a time. We could require masks or have gloves on. I remember showing houses with gloves on. We might not be able to do open houses, but could we take a video of us walking through to send to someone so it feels like a virtual tour? Like what can we do to still sharpen those skills, but maybe have to do it in a different way? Because I think sometimes I think about these things, I think, well, I can't do that. I don't know how, I'm not going to. Well, we shift our mindset a little bit, can be done differently and still accomplish the same goal. This is the John Clark video, if possible.
No ads.
My name is John Clay. I've been with Keller Williams since 2011. Been a realtor for 23 years. I'm here to speak about committing to self-mastery. You know, when you think about self-mastery, it's one of those things that, you know, reminds me of watching basketball. And, you know, you see these professional players and they shoot three-pointers like it's nothing. And you think, oh, that's easy. But when you figure out behind the scenes, they're practicing shooting thousands of shots every day, even on weekends. And then you start to figure, you know, you do that every day, every month, every year, and you continue to do it. And you start saying, wow, why are they so good? Well, they're good because they practice and they continue to have habits around it. And they eventually master it. And I think about Steph Curry, that he's shot so many three-pointers that it would take someone almost 7 years to catch up to the amount of three-pointers he shot over his course of his career. So that's, to me, that's really self-mastery. That brings me to my story. I was a New Jersey State Trooper for 17 years, a dual career realtor as well, and did both at the same time for a lot of years. And I always struggled hiring admins. And I was like, why am I continuing to struggle? And I would get a resume and look at it and say, I got a gut, I think they're gonna be good. And over, I kept failing at hiring an admin. And when I came to Keller Williams, they had this process called, well, at the time it was Recruit Select, which I never really got into that much, but then when career visioning came, I started to really kind of like get into it, teach it, understand it, and I was able to participate in the train the trainer for career visioning. So I was going to be one of the facilitators for career visioning. So it kind of forced me to kind of get into career visioning and to learn what it was about. And I really got attracted to the systematic approach to hiring because I never did it before. I was just hiring by resumes and gut. And as I started to teach it, I started to learn it more. And then I actually went and watched other people present it. And I was like, wow, if I really can nail this, I could probably really get good at making hires. And then if you listen to what Gary says, you know, your first 5 hires, how important they are to the success of your organization. And then, you know, who you get in business with matters. So if I can nail this, you know, I really can have a big life. So I started to really study it, practice it, and from administrative hires to regional directors now that I've been hiring, I've been able to really, I would say, master it by continually practicing it, doing it by myself, doing it with friends, doing it with my wife. And eventually it got to the point where I didn't need to even look at the manual. I was just doing it from being able to, because I practiced it so much. So if you think about your career, you know, what is it that you can do that actually allows you to be really good at what you do, whether it be lead gen, whether it be networking, you know, what strengths help you and what weaknesses kind of hold you back from being really good at it? Because I know for me, my weaknesses was I thought I could just hire with my gut, and that really wasn't the case, right? I actually needed a systematic approach to actually make the hire. So being consistent and learning how to do career visioning for me really allowed me to be really successful in my business. So here's what I would suggest for you, my recommendation if you want to really get good at self-mastery, right? Think about your strengths, think about your weaknesses. What is it that you do really well? Where is it that you maybe fall a little short? And maybe just start to really practice it, have accountability around it. You're already taking the first step. Congratulations. I look forward to seeing you on your path to self-mastery.
So if you can take that sheet of paper that you've written your goals on and make a list of some of your strengths and weaknesses. Things that you're really great at and things that you could do a little work on or a little help with. When you're done doing that, write down 3 obstacles that you think might hinder your success at achieving the goal that you circled at the beginning. Or 3 obstacles that you think might hinder your success as you think about that first goal that you want. And as you look at your list of strengths and the obstacles that you wrote down, which strengths do you think will help you with the obstacles that you have? And then any weaknesses that hinder you from overcoming that, how can you conquer those weaknesses? Think about ways, if you have weaknesses that are gonna kind of hinder your progress in mastering that goal, what are some ways that you could overcome those weaknesses? And maybe it's in combination with some strengths you have listed on your strengths list. Sometimes too, the obstacles that we have are actually movable. Like I talked about a little bit with COVID, like, well, we can't have an open house, but what could we do to move that obstacle? Well, we could record it, we can send that out on a video link. What are maybe some obstacles too? Are you have any that you could just, think about in a different way that would let you move that obstacle right out of the way? A minute on that, and then if anyone wants to share. If you have someone near you, it says have you partner up. So partner up if you don't mind sharing with somebody nearby, and they can maybe help you think through some of the obstacles you have too, if you have an obstacle that you're kind of stuck on. See if we can get some creative juices flowing on how we can make those obstacles movable, and then we'll circle back in about 5 minutes.
Harley,
Yeah.
ironically, John Clay is here next week.
Oh, you'd like to see, oh yeah, he's doing his what? Or
Revisioning.
revisioning at 2 days, right? He does revisioning, and then the next day he does the
Revisioning second day.
Lee's motivate training or whatever.
Nice.
I should enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, you got a puppy.
We got a puppy, so technically I'm a mom.
Yeah, true story. Yeah.
So, you know, that's like my big why is like my family and everything like that. So with that, one of the things that I'm currently trying to work on in like every aspect of my life is, I feel like I'm a really caring person and want to talk to my first but sometimes there's one who makes others like
Right, and so.
what?
I gotta work on it.
Yeah, I feel like
Why would like to
and then continuing to do that, I love to open just like being able to say that. That's where that I said that one gift that I often put people for me to take away.
Great, so,
And that's actually other needs.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you know, when I was trying to build a relationship around, this is what will help me. Get this to me. I know. It needs to go, yeah. It's time long.
Mom, that you hold a lot of different, like, juggling stuff that she has. That was so big. Yeah. You know, I know, like, I'm 27 and she was like 27, 30 years ago. And then after I have a year life, I'll be saying, I should say, like, and then it just started. Hey, oh, I got baby for an hour. I go on chocolate. Yeah, I'm like, okay, we need your own surprise. Gotcha.
Yes, I can go to that errand for you. I can get dinner at 6 while I'm at the appointment at 5:45. And I'll tell you, right? I'm like, yeah, always. Like that.
Let me look away for 2 minutes.
I love it. So mine is managed by company. So now that
You know, so it's like, just one day it's not gonna be
I think that's huge. Just certain like we we're just being fun. Like last night I got home, I got my children. I'm like, that is huge. That is huge.
Well,
You know, it's not like. And then he wanted to go upstairs and play with it. Okay, good. So like, now that things are changing. Really getting asking for help, and then I put on there, like, our family meeting on Sunday, and I really yeah, there's part of it is family, next family.
So we should read as well.
Yeah.
Right, like my mind's already going, geez, I'm like, I mean, so I wanted trying to figure out what to talk about all this. I'm still working on moving that. First semester was so, I've got to help a professional organizer. Yeah. I feel like I'm very alive and so very, I can't, I is my one-time shopper coming in with this, I think I'm going to the store, do I find something? Walk away. And I know it's so hard, because you can have something else in order and once it's organized, right, like now. When I got, I'm like, part of the idea, part of it was, when you have this, they said.
Okay, well, have you finished your thoughts? Back to the group.
I'm not gonna think it's good.
Does anyone want to share an aha or two maybe that they had from chatting with others in the group? Or from the class as a whole? Any ahas from doing that activity? Super powerful. Yeah.
Well, you know, I'd just like, how many people in this room actually have a coach? So.
Not for production, but yeah.
40–50% roughly, would you say? Coaches can't make you do anything.
Amen. Yep.
They can't make you do anything. This is the sort of exercise that coaches help you with to understand those things. And, you know, I've had the opportunity to coach people, and I know that when we can start to identify the roadblocks before we get there and start saying, all right, what's going to interfere with our ability to get this done? And what can we do about that? And you start having the ability to master those things. Because anytime we all have great plans, they just run into a roadblock. And instead of just pretending like that's not going to happen, just take a few minutes beforehand and go, what are those possible challenges? And then what tools do I have in my tool belt to get past that? It's such a huge exercise. It's super powerful.
And who do I know if I don't have the tool that might have the tool to help me, right? Because what I've learned from being at this company, which is an unusual thing, especially in our industry. When I was looking earlier in the year about recruiting agents potentially to the team, I reached out to one of the top teams in our area. And I said, hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing. I'm wondering if you can meet with them. He said, sure, we're available. He gave me 3 different times. I went and met with them and they told me what they were doing. Like, amazing. Why reinvent the wheel? Right? They already told me some of the roadblocks that could come up, and so I can prepare how I can, handle those when they come and what they've done. Yeah, very good. Any other takeaways, thoughts?
Well, one of the things that I'm working on in my life in general is boundaries. And, like, one of my strengths / weaknesses is I feel like I'm a very, I constantly want to give, whether it's like my time or my energy or whatever it is. And I have a really hard time saying no to people when, I know that something's important to them, but it might not work for me. I just automatically am like, yep, I'll do what I need to do to make it happen. So, I'm working on realizing that, and we talked about the 4 quadrants earlier. I am constantly operating in the very urgent, needs to be done now quadrants, because I put everyone else's stuff first. And then when it comes to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do this, and this, when I just spent all this time doing all that other stuff. So I'm just trying to put myself before others so that I can be fully present for the other stuff as well.
Or even put yourself equal.
Yeah, I could start with that.
Yeah, because sometimes it's like, ooh, I can't do that. Right, go back to that, I can't. Maybe what could you do? If you did know, how would you do it? Well, it brought me up to same, at least as a starting point. Yeah. Cool. Other country, A couple ahas, any other ahas about that activity? Thoughts, questions, concerns?
We need to take more time to work on the business rather than in the business, and just taking the time to think about all that, it's huge.
Yeah, right. The other thing, when you asked about who has a coach, it says something about you that you're here today, and that you're thinking about these things, right? Because what's one of the very first things that we learned, right? The high achievers are always practicing, always learning, always, getting better at their craft. Real estate is your craft. The fact that you're here says something. The fact that you're plugged into training and that you're, talking to other people in the office, going to the masterminds and all of that says something too. So, my last slide. So, ahas of the overall class. I wrote a couple things down, but if anyone has thoughts they want to share or parting comments before we're done here in just a couple minutes. Two things I have. So, the 10,000 hours really stuck with me. It takes 10,000 hours to master something. And stopping to think when I get frustrated that I'm not where I want to be, or that it's, not exactly how I wanted, to ask myself, have I done that? Because if not, then why am I so upset with myself? And maybe granting myself a little bit of grace about the situation, or granting that to someone else. If, I'm having an issue with somebody else, it's like, have they probably done the 10,000 hours to be a master of whatever it is I'm frustrated with them? Most people, that answer is probably going to be no. And when you're committing to self-mastery, one of the greatest superpowers that we have is asking for help and finding other people who have that skill that can help us move those roadblocks, or help us learn the skill, or do the script practice with us, or whatever your obstacle may be. It's not a bad thing to ask people who've already done it before and are masters of it to be their mentor, or have to be a mentor for you, or follow them around. And I think about a new agent probably 10 years ago. We were newer agents, and Zach, we were at the old office, and a young agent, brand new agent came in and said, hey, is there any way that I could sit down with you to do some script practice? Sure. So he comes in, and I don't know, a couple months goes by, he's like, hey, that script you gave me has really been working. Zach's like, oh, that's awesome. He's like, yeah, I just recorded you while we were in there. And then I just listened to it every day, and now it just rolls off my tongue. And so I asked him if, they want to come in for a buyer consult so I can help educate, advise, and protect them through the process. He had internalized it so much, and he had listened to it so many times that it just rolled off his tongue, and he became a super successful realtor. And I'm not saying that, that's because he listened to Zach, it's because the skill set, right? He just repeated that script over and over and over until he had internalized it. It sounded like him. And when you become competent at something, your confidence shines through, right? And that's what was happening. And so, just like a little bit of an aha that I had as I was thinking about this class. It's like, he asked for help, and he took that script, internalized it, and turned it into dollars for him. He became a master of buyers. Tons of buyers. So, yeah. Other ahas? Questions? Concerns?
I've got a couple.
Yeah.
I've got a couple. First off, let's give Carly a hand. What a fantastic. We haven't done this in the Market Center in years, and to have somebody come up and do this and step forward, it's just incredible. I mean, thank you. That's amazing. We will be having the next step. Step 2 is on the 22nd. Same time, same bat channel. It will be available on Zoom as well. So if that's something that's important to you, this is the kind of class I think it's important for you to be here, but sometimes that's not always possible. So, if that's the case, and also along that same line, Ed Milet, his Power of One speech, will be doing a watch party next Tuesday here in the training room right after we do vision boards. So I think vision boards is at noon, and Milet will be at 1. And the Power of One is such that it is so closely related to this, and it's just such a powerful speech. that if you haven't had the chance to see it, I can't encourage you enough to take the time. It's recorded, so you can see it in other places if that time doesn't work for you, but truly take the time. You've already committed to this step. You've already been here, you've done this, take it that next step. And there's so much that can come out of it, so I can't be more grateful. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sharing with us today.
Thanks for being here, guys. Thank you.
Group picture?
Of
That
course.
sounds nerdy.
But let's
Come on.
gather close rather than be so spread out.
Yes,
I'll take
come
it.
on, group picture, come on.
Where are we going?
Right here. Come on,
We should stand together.
Okay, I'll be in the middle.
come on. This is a great way to, hey, this is a great way to show your people on social media that you're working without telling them you're working.
I'm gonna get, come on.
Let's go, let's go.
Okay, we're gonna have some vendors, I think. This is, yeah.
No, but I just.
Come on in.
Oh, hello.
Come on,
Here.
Jason.
No, me, okay, come on.
Come on in.
Jack,
Oh, I
lean
should
forward.
probably not be, I shouldn't be splitting up YouTube.
Get closer, Jason.
On over.
That's so
I
weird.
know.
It's so weird.
Okay.
1, 2, and 3. Wow, you have committed to self-mastery of a style. Again, when you see me post this on social media, copy the picture, repost it yourself. You're telling your sphere that you're working without telling them you're working.
That's so true, that is so true. I'm only reposting
Anything
about
that's not from a nation, I'm like.
I'm teasing.
No, I totally will. I'm ready to turn it on.
Yeah, that's what, I do that, and I'll just turn Zoom on, just
Yeah,
for like
I
noise
just
and
like-
then.
Catch someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't know if I can just.
Hey, Jason, do you know, I texted you, but do you know who was on this by chance?
I did text you a response.
Oh my God, what? Okay.
That's crazy.
Carly, read it. Kelsey got her passport.
Love it. I knew it would be okay.
So thank you for your help.
Oh, yeah. Exactly that much power that she could really.
Yeah, no, but it was funny because we totally didn't know about like the picture.
Oh,
We just thought they took it there.
Oh, yeah.
And so like after I got out of her office, I'm like, Kelsey,
Is that your picture? Because that was just okay. Before we went to get
okay.
This is like, oh, you got a million. And I don't want them back. Get it?
That's not gonna work.
Fire my to C-130, so I can't. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Well, I bought these at the library, because they sell them in like books.
But thank you.
Yes, I'm so happy that.
Yes, me too.
Absolutely. Just for pushing me to teach it.
Thank you for those good vibes. Can I should make sure that files on my account and what to do for
Oh, yeah.
and she was
No, I'm gonna go look, I think there's one more.
Yeah, and then I just referral fees are setting it up again. So that because she's like, I really part-time, I can't.
Yes. I'm glad that you know that now.
No worries, okay.
Have you met Jamie
I
before?
just, I might be showing how to.
Oh, cool, then you both know.
So that's why.
Yeah, get it wrapped up.
Got some Ted Lasso for you.
Thank you.
Of course.
What are you doing? Nothing. I'll have to check. Yeah, okay, so I'll respond to her, yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
Say this off? No, I don't mean to.
No, you're good, you're good. What am I making?
You staying?
I really wanted to. I know, I'm like, what, showing? No, it's actually. Okay, I'll I'll tell you, it needs more explanation than I.
Some VAs, like.
Oh, okay, got it. I think on like a VA like loans. Okay, I was like, huh?
Oh, and by the way, we're talking about the beginning, like. I only know culture, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't want to know. Like, whatever, sure,
Right.
whatever. And then. Oh, I was like, yeah, we're gonna judge it. And I had like the weirdest blank stare, I'm like, who's we? Just like me and Tony, I'm like, oh, it's duh. And I'm like,
Well, it does have to be, and I told
yeah.
you guys are so sweet, but like I don't want to be a big girl son. I just want people to help, and I feel like it can be different, it's like. And I think the way we could have it different is like, if you're part of your community to do a certain amount of like volunteer hours, or like you have access here to be asked for that, or
I feel like we didn't want to fall off this.
yes, yeah. And then also it's like, okay, well, if we don't get 6 volunteers to be on the committee for this event, then the event's just not happening. But then they asked if we wanted to need help.
I know, I'm like, what is that? I don't know what the options are. So then I'm like, well, yeah, I know this culture.
Right. But I thought that was a last year. But I was like, I would rather be on one that's already up and start from scratch and
What about
yeah,
it? What do
you don't want to look like this.
Stop, that's not.
But it's like, well, I don't think I'm like the best for that, but
I mean, I might have been interested in that one, but I didn't even know that was a thing.
yeah.
And I mean, I'd love to do anything else, so.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And I feel like I didn't do that much.
Well, it would be like, no. Yeah, which, again, I'm okay, but like, let's say like, I think we get everything to somebody and we start earlier. And then we say like, okay, like, if nobody signs up to take XP exchange head on, then it's not happening. Or, which honestly, the cookie exchange, the two will build things. No, I mean, you are fine. But I totally get it, again.
I don't, we'll figure that out later on. I just feel like, I don't know, that's what a couple people I told you that. With the excited people.
Oh.
Or we figured it out. It
Okay.
worked out.
Okay.
Like in the end, it was fine. No one really.
Okay. Oh my gosh, that's weird. Yeah, what do you do? So the next thing is rent day, and I've had 3 people ask me like, hey, what's the number? I don't know. So I'm like, no. Well, I mean, no, we don't start it first. And, it's in May, beginning of May, so really it's like, yeah. So that's why I'm like, well, if we're gonna do something, we should probably.
Yep.
But is it just as soon as you do?
Online league.
Right, I know we're heading to that.
2.
And maybe we should say that. Cause she's not, I mean, she's even fully.
I don't want to buy it.
No, I think she's fine. But that's, I just like, I don't think our committee's even meeting right now.
have to like order